Podcast time, people. Sam and I are sitting down. We're going to do what we're due. No random third party. No third wheel. What are some other terms? I don't know any other phrases. Anyway, almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. The Election Guide 23 will be showing up shortly. I don't know, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Randy Pace was fun last week. I was a little rough on Saturday, I won't lie. So, anyway, go to your favorite podcast provider. Give us a follow there. Share it, tell your friends about it, stuff like that. And, I don't know, help us get the word out. We're going to start working on election stuff. I did get some info. I got a couple guests lined up, but I haven't gotten dates officially yet. So we'll talk about that here in a second. Yeah, check us out. We're going to do a show. Here we go.
Hey.
What's happening?
Not much.
Excuse me, that was a little coming a little strong. Get a little phlegm in us. So, yeah. I got a little drunk last week, I ain't gonna lie.
Hell, you got tore up.
I had a good time. I do enjoy me some Randy Pace, as I mentioned. I like Randy Pace a lot. It's interesting. I think I will make it a rule to have a Square the Circle segment with any interviews coming forward. I like the phrase because I think it points out how ridiculous some of the stuff is. Senate passed the drag thing this week.
Did they pass it? I saw something about it earlier.
Yeah, it got the floor vote.
I thought it passed like the first hurdle, like first committee, maybe?
No, the Senate passed it. It has to go to the House, and the House will have to pick it apart and do some shit, and they'll change it, and then they'll send it back, and then it'll get to the governor's desk, and if he signs it or not, it doesn't matter. Once it gets to that point, it's kind of going to happen. I wouldn't see Lee refusing it.
I think Knoxville already canceled their Pride Fest if that goes through.
Yeah, there's a rally on Monday that was announced to try to show it. So, because apparently Pride, one of the speakers from the official Pride spokesperson or whatever a couple weeks ago came out and said, hey, we love you guys, we appreciate you guys coming out and enjoying the events that we put on and supporting us and all the different things that we do, but if you actually want to support us, we need you to actually support us, and that will be start making the phone calls and emails and making sure this doesn't go into effect. So I was talking to Jesse and Scott about it today because they had a segment on it as well, and Jesse's read through it word for word and what it's going to at least what the Senate version is. We'll see what the House does to it in adjustments, but the Senate version is it's basically if you're wearing the other gender's clothes with a performance. And so a little bit overly hyperbolic, if you happen to walk down the street in a dress, that's not a drag performance. But if you're humming loud enough, it could be argued as much.
Yeah,
what's the definition of performance? I mean,
I thought you argued with last week that it was going to get anyone just walking down the road, and I was like,
I wouldn't think they would either, but it's also implied that it's only if it's lewd and sexual that it counts for under this new law. But it's
that's open to interpretation.
Exactly. And so where does me wearing a dress on Gay Street?
I see your ankles. That's sexual.
That's what I'm saying. And Jesse made a good point. He's like, think about Dolly.
Right.
Those tits are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they've been ridiculous for decades. And she's 80 and they're still ridiculous.
Right.
And they're out there. But nobody would be like, Dolly shouldn't be able to wear that on the street. But if a dude wore the same thing with fake
Dolly
tits,
impersonator can't do that.
Right. Well, if it's a male Dolly impersonator, but that's the point though. Is that a performance? Even if you're just walking down the street, is that a performance because you are impersonating Dolly Parton even though you're a man?
No. Maybe somebody's got to throw money at you and be like,
I'm just saying,
you're dressed funny. Here, I threw $5 at you. You're doing a performance.
Because to me, the way it is written, if a sheriff decides that he wants to be uber strict on it, it is within the language of the law that if you were walking down the street in a dress, that they could arrest you for it.
Possibly.
And there's no case law to say yay or nay on this, and so it's just kind of deal with it. And we'll wait until some people get arrested, and then we'll start figuring out what the actual line is.
I would assume more often than not it would have to be a complaint that was filed before police would actually make that stop.
Maybe there was a story in Cookeville. What county's Cookeville in? Tullahoma?
I'm not sure.
God, I wish.
Cumberland County?
I mean, it was floating around that it was months ago. It was like a month ago that this like brunch event happened in Crossville. But it was a private event. You had to pay to get in, blah, 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 whatever. There was some community complaint about a drag show thing, but it's like, it's a private event. You know, don't worry about it. Mind your business. The sheriff sent a couple deputies in to watch the thing to see if there was anything illegal happening.
Yeah.
And some protesters came out and took up a bunch of the parking and stuff like that and made it really hard for them to do their thing. But like this happened weeks ago, but the Senate passed the thing yesterday, day before, and this is when the sheriff comes out and puts out his press release about what happened.
What did they say happened?
Like it's just like that explanation I just gave you.
Oh.
Is that
did they find anything of the two?
They did. They ended up citing a bartender for serving underage.
That's not what I was asking. What topic are we talking about?
The thing in Crossville.
Right.
The sheriff put out a press release this week of an event that happened 3 weeks ago.
Right. And
the press release was explaining what happened.
Gotcha.
And the explanation was more or less the explanation
I mean, as far as they sent the two guys in there to make sure there were no lewd shows going on. That's what I was asking.
Right. And the two guys left there with citing a bartender for an underage service issue. So no. But I mean, at the time, it wasn't illegal anyway. And even today, it's not illegal technically because it won't go into effect until July at the earliest. But
I mean, there could be some weird county ordinance on the book.
But it's not illegal anyway, I don't think. And so, I don't know. It's weird. It's stupid.
I agree. It's very stupid.
We have
all things we have to worry about.
Right, because the other one...
if this was like some kind of ongoing issue, but I feel like this is just grasping at straws.
Well, I mean, it gets to be like, to me, the question is...
We're fighting culture wars.
The question to me is this an important issue? Are there really a lot of people that think this is an important societal issue that we as a community need to come together and make a decision on, which we haven't done yet, which would be the first step, and then make some laws to make the decision enactable? Right? Is this a thing that's that big a fucking deal? I don't think it is. I understand that there are people that do. But the math, I would believe, is in my favor on it's not that big a deal.
Right.
Or at least it's none of your business. Or the combination of those two outweigh the people that are so appalled by it.
I agree.
You know, and so, like, just in the process of it. So to me, what are we not talking about because we're talking about this? What of the 1,200 bills that's going on in the state right now are we not paying attention to because this is the headline story?
Right.
You know, and that's what I don't know. I don't know because we're talking about this. But, like, you know, because, I mean, we had the hemp ones that we've been talking about. We've got, you know, the other square circle things about, you know, trans health permissions or lack thereof. That's another one that's in session.
Yeah, I was surprised Randy didn't see the connection that you were making. He's like, I just don't see it.
Right.
I get the connection. That. I'm like, it's just choice. Like, that's what the connection is. You're looking at two different things, and then you're asking for people's choice on this,
right? Because to me, I think the clarification that I could have made, that maybe I should have made, is, you know, if we're talking about if the comparison he's making is child abuse, right? You're doing something, you're mutilating your child, whether they agree or disagree with it or not. Well, if you consent to it and I cut you up personally, like you and I agree to something, and part of that is me cutting your finger off. I don't know that I could say, well, he agreed to it. It's not a crime. It's not an assault. I cut it. Yes, Your Honor. I cut his finger off, but he said it was okay. Like that would still be criminal at some point, I would think, right?
Yeah.
So if the base is a crime, then you know what I'm saying. Like if the base of it's a crime anyway.
Right.
Then what's the matter if it's a kid or not? And so
circumcision's cool, you know. Right.
And so that would have been a good one to bring up. I wish I would have brought that one up instead of the Adderall one because that's the first one that popped in my head when we were arguing about it.
Yeah.
But if the base part is like, so to me, the inference that's happening that maybe I could have put Randy on the spot on or some other Republican when I get the chance. The inference that they're doing is saying that it is a criminal act whether you do it as an adult or a child. That's the inference, and it's not legally in the books yet to be a criminal act as an adult too, but that's the logical next step to what they're trying to do. You can't do it to kids, you can't do it to adults either. Because again, this isn't about you choosing for yourself anymore. This is about the state allowing a doctor to do the procedure you ask him to.
Right.
And so if kids aren't allowed to make that choice with their parents, then adults aren't allowed to make that choice either. That's the logical leap. That's the next step in the conversation.
There's a lot of crazy stuff in it.
Right.
And so when we talk about, when are you old enough to make decisions, but we also pointed out that, the human brain isn't fully formed till you're 24, 25, but, how many people go through a midlife crisis and change sexual preferences, have a total change of lifestyle.
Right.
And we're like, hey, sorry, you don't know what you want to do, so you can't make those decisions yet. You need to be older to make those decisions.
Right. And then by the time you're old enough to make those decisions, you may or may not be.
People change their minds all the time. That's one of the bigger pushbacks. It's like, well, what if 4 years later they change their mind? It's like, you learn from mistakes. But
I got a tattoo I'm not super excited I still have, but it's still there.
Right.
18-year-old me made a less than stellar choice,
right.
But
I think a lot of people assume that these choices are just made like willy-nilly. I'm sure I've mentioned, I'm sure there are some unscrupulous doctors that would, after one meeting, schedule someone to do something.
Right. I mean, there are activists
this is usually
everywhere.
like hours, or sorry, not even hours, like
weeks and
months and years of hey, therapy and actually talk about this.
Right. There are activists everywhere.
Right.
All professions have have some activists in it. Some of them. So there are doctors that are just doctors, but then there are doctors that are also advocates. I mean, Kevorkian was an activist doctor.
Just general plastic surgeon doctors. There's some. I would say more reputable doctors have been like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to work on your seventh nose job. At this point, your nose could
turning into
collapse.
Michael Jackson on me.
Right.
But yeah, as I'm saying, but
there's other sure, you pay me $20,000.
Sure,
I'll do it, whatever you want.
Right. That's one option, but right, that's the negative option. Where the positive option I'm trying to push up, maybe not positive per se, but there are activists in all walks of life. Whatever their profession is, they could be an activist about a thing that may or may not be connected to their job. There are certainly activist doctors that are out there thinking that everybody should transition the second they think it. And that's unfortunate, but it's a consequence of the world we live in. And I think that is a concern, and that's something to keep an eye on and maybe figure out some sort of backstop against activism inside a profession being problematic. But at the end of the day, at least as it was explained to me what was going on at Vandy, like you said, it's months or years of mental and physical and emotional therapies and conversations and this, that, and the other. It wasn't just okay, let's do it.
Okay, when are you available next Tuesday?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. We got you scheduled in.
We got an opening.
Yeah.
You'll have a new opening.
Not so much.
Or new appendage. I don't know, whatever. But so, yeah, again, I think I don't understand. I just can't, I don't get it. I don't understand the mindset of anybody. I kind of get it on the kid side a little bit. But I think most of that is lack of information. Most people, I would bet you probably the most ardent, angry, hateful version that says, we shouldn't be doing this, kids, we shouldn't be that person. Those people that are most excitable about it are probably the ones that don't realize how in-depth the actual process is.
Right, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people just assume it's...
Right.
Yeah.
They think it's that quick and easy and done.
It's happening every day.
Right. And so I think, again, it goes to one of my great favorite fallbacks is the lack of education, whether it's basic education in schools or whether it's education on a particular topic that they feel and I don't know. I guess that's one of my defaults though. It's if I don't know the topic well enough to make a real decision on it, I'm certainly not going to insert my decision as being the right one.
Right.
I'll tell you my thoughts on it. I'll tell you what I think about it, but I don't know. I don't have enough information on it to make a decision. And I certainly don't have enough information on it to make a decision for somebody else. And I think I don't understand that is so normal to my thought processes. I don't understand how other people think backwards of that.
It's a little bit of gullibility and lack of skepticism, I guess, at certain things. Just taking everything that they read or hear at just straight full value, full face value.
Yeah. So I need to call Becky about the line of succession situation. So if you guys haven't heard, Mr. McNally has fallen ill, an irregular heartbeat or something like that is what the article said.
I think so.
Something like that. So he's in the hospital. So all this conversation about what happens if Governor Lee is incapacitated. Well, since the new thing took effect at the beginning of this year, the person who is supposed to be the backup if Governor Lee gets incapacitated is currently incapacitated.
Yeah.
And so Sam asked the witty question of, well, now what?
And I was like, yeah, do we have something in place for this too?
Which I believe would go to from Speaker of the House from House to Senate leader. So I think it would go from Randy McNally to Speaker Sexton.
Yeah, Nally's the Senate Speaker.
Senate Speaker, yeah.
To the House Speaker, right?
Yeah.
Sexton.
Yeah, I believe it would go from McNally to Sexton if somehow.
That makes sense.
And so, but then speaking of Sexton, he's apparently trying to refuse or to conversing about refusing some ridiculous sum of funds from the federal government.
Yeah, I guess he wants to take the state away from receiving federal funds, just to kind of take them out of that loophole of having federal mandates where the federal government says, hey, if you're getting money, you have to do this, this, and this.
Right. And I agree with the principle of that, but I would like to know what
I appreciate that he actually came out and said that no state has ever tried or accomplised this.
Right.
I'm sure it's side, but I think he said no state has ever accomplished this. So he knows it's a big uphill battle.
I got a headline out of this. I haven't gotten into this very deeply yet, but in principle, I like the idea. I don't know the specifics of this.
He's like, we can fund this.
Right, we can fund this. We don't need I don't know. I'm split on it in principle. I guess it's like, well, they're taking our money to the federal government. We should take as much back as we possibly can. But at the same time,
I'm assuming we would be kicking back maybe a little less because of that on the balance sheet. I don't know.
Your income tax is your income tax. House passed the fair tax.
But as far as what the state in general kicks up to the federal government,
I don't know that they kick anything up to the federal government. What do they like? The state of Tennessee is not taxed by the federal government. I'm sure they pay for some services for here or there, but I wouldn't think that. I mean, the employees of the state of Tennessee and the employees in there.
Well, I'm assuming it's like Knox County to the state. It's like we don't keep a ledger of how much they owe us back, but basically we pay taxes, get kicked up to them, and then on a crazy balance sheet, some money gets funneled back down to us. Right. As far as funding or grants or whatever.
Sure.
It's all convoluted, but I'm assuming there's some kind of pipeline of state Tennessee money that goes up to D.C., and we also have federal funds coming back to us. And
we have federal funds and grants and all sorts of different stuff like that. But that's a good question. I would think the only money from the state of Tennessee would be our income tax and or other like tariffs and import taxes, any of the taxes. Yeah. SEC and FAA fines for the different companies that work out of the state. I'm sure, but any federal business taxes and stuff like that go up, but I wouldn't think that's a good question. I'm curious now, but I wouldn't think the state of Tennessee.
I'm no economist.
I wouldn't think the state of Tennessee, by any sort of default measure, owes something to the federal government, unless there is an arrangement made where the state borrows money from the federal government, or the state purchases a program or a plan or some sort of action committee group thing to do with something.
Because I know it's been said, that California gives more to the federal government than they get back from the federal government. Right. They're one of the rare states that, has the GDP of small to medium-sized countries.
I mean, I would assume that all states send more. I mean, it would have to be all states send more than they get back. Because states per se don't get a bunch directly back. The biggest, all the entitlements are the big part: the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. That money goes into the federal government and then comes back to the individuals in the state. But everything else, for the most part, a lot of the stuff the federal government does shouldn't come back to the states individually anyway. What's the biggest expense of the federal government outside of entitlements?
Military.
Yeah. So if we send $10 in and they spend $2 of our 10 on the military, we can only get back $8.
Well, I would say the next big thing would probably be roads and infrastructure.
Right, and if we're counting
federal funding for that,
right? But still, if we're counting how much the federal government spends on roads and stuff in our state against what our state contributes to the federal government, like by default, just having the military portion in there, it can't come back even unless.
Well, I mean, I think we need
theoretically, yes, a California who pays a ton in and gets very little back in help.
Right, but I think we need to differentiate how much money of like the quote unquote states going back to the federal government versus, I think you're kind of adding in the general public's, payroll fees and things like that are going back to.
I don't think
I'm talking about the actual state itself.
I don't think the state pays anything unless they're buying something from the federal government.
I don't know.
I really don't think that, like,
I assumed it was kind of like us, of where taxes are going up to the state and then it gets thrown into a big fishbowl and we get divvied back out.
But I think the federal government's budget is taxes on the individual, income tax, that goes into the big bucket and gets swirled around and pushed back out. I don't yes, the state of Tennessee has employees and those employees pay income tax, but I don't think that, like, the Capitol building has a special tax that, like, a special property tax on the Capitol building that goes to the federal government. I don't think there's to exist as a state, you have to pay this fee annually, or you don't get to keep your statehood.
Right.
I don't think that's how it works. I'm just saying, I don't think the federal government gets any money from states as entities, other than the employees of the state's income tax.
Well, I would say state agencies, as far as maybe like their profits, would then kick up to the federal as far as the taxes. I don't know.
I mean, I will acknowledge that I don't know for a fact, but I am pretty confident that no.
Like I said, I didn't even think about it. You keep adding in the employees and the people's income tax that they're paying into it.
Right,
I'm leaving the people out of it in general.
Right, but I'm just saying that's the only one that I think that exists, though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where else. I mean, yes, I mean there are probably some weird banking fees or interstate commerce banking fees that kind of go in, and that goes to the Fed or something like that, or the Treasury. But I mean, like, as I understand it, the federal government's income is they have two income sources. Well, three, I guess. Their main income source is income tax off the individuals that live in their country and work. They are import and tariffs, and any sort of penalties or fines that they divvy out. That is all the money the IRS gets. I don't think the state of Florida, I don't think Tallahassee's sending $1 billion a year up.
Yeah, I don't know.
As an entity.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know.
Massive long tangent.
Yeah, we were talking about not taking like $1 billion in. Was it education related?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested in what the strings are. Like, I'm not opposed to the principle of it, but I'm interested in what the strings are and what strings we're avoiding by not.
Right. Because we've talked about, the education budget itself is a massive amount of money.
It's huge. I mean, it's the largest chunk of it, if I recall. I sent that to the group.
It's like, hey, we got a rainy day fund. Let's start using it. Use it or lose it.
That's my stance on it, man. We talked about that a little bit ago. They need to pick a number. Yes, I think we should have some savings. I think that's great. I think it's a great idea that the state of Tennessee has no debt. That is a cool thing to have. Why are you not opening as an image? All right, I can't open it anymore.
Funky.
So, I think that's a great thing that the state of Tennessee has accomplished. But I think as a rule, oh fuck, I can't open it, so I can't see the deets. Oh, you threw my moon on the ground, bro. That was me texting you so that I could see this file to see if it would open, and it won't open. Yeah, I'd be curious what the strings are and whether it's worth that much money. But I think it's great. I think it's great that we have a savings set up. I think that's smart. I think it's great that we don't have debt as a state. I think that's great.
I don't think the education department has come out with any kind of
statement on that one.
Yeah.
But I think at some point this rainy day fund, you need to pick a number. It needs to be an adjustable number, like a percentage of state GDP or a percentage of the total budget.
Well, I mean, just stick it in an investment fund for a year.
But yeah,
Or a
it's that
good
fucking
chunk
big.
of it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, take half of it, and we've still got that half as like a rainy day. Hey, we just had a tornado, whatever.
Right, but once you get to a point, you need to spend it or you need to give it back. Because, cool. Save it, get some interest on it. I'm not going to complain about that to an extent. But hey, you could give me a couple $1,000s back that I've spent in sales tax, and I can put that in a bank account and I can save that, and I can make a few dollars in interest on it. Why do you get to do that with my money? For lack of a better way to say it. It's hard to account exactly how much of that is mine and other people's, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I get it. But don't take it if you don't need it. I mean, not to agree with Randy on anything, but I mean, take what you need and do the job. Don't take more than you need. Don't take less than you need. Take the right number or close to it. Build a little cushion. And then if you don't need, don't take. It doesn't seem that complicated to me. I mean, yes, it is complicated in the mass and the total numbers and stuff like that.
So it is or it isn't.
The principle isn't. The specifics of how to get to the numbers that you should be taking is complicated, yes.
Yeah.
But there are people that know what the fuck they're doing and can figure that out.
Well, these are the same people that know what the fuck they're doing that are overcharging us, presumably.
I mean, I mean, there's, yeah, I mean, they do. They know they're overcharging us, obviously, because they're bragging about the rainy day fund.
Yeah, but how long has the rainy day fund been amassing itself? I don't think it's anything we've just stumbled upon in the past 2 years.
No, it's been the last couple of years, like maybe 5-6 years. I mean, apparently, as I understand it,
I don't know when it started.
Tennessee was one of the worst states fiscally for years. And like late 90s, early aughts, apparently the ship kind of started getting righted. Now, there's the conversation of, well, we stopped spending money on shit, and that's why our road suck. So maybe, I don't know. I just know that the bank statements look like a functioning entity where before it was borrowing and interest payments and this, that, and the other. And so, depending on how you see government should be handling money, I guess it's relative on which one's the right way to do it. But, I don't know. That is what I was told. I think it was Halloran, because I was listening to Halloran when not Lafferty, Zachary was on Monday during the State of the State. And so I was listening because Zachary was on, and he hadn't come on. Well, he had just came on, and they were talking about it. And yeah, Zachary made some sort of joke that back when he was a kid, because Zachary's our age, maybe a couple years younger, I think,
something like that,
or maybe a couple older. Anyway, he's give or take, he's about our age. He's like back when he was a kid, and I think he said he grew up in Memphis. They moved to East Tennessee somewhere later in life. Anyway, back when he was a kid in Memphis, Tennessee was terrible with their money. And so in a 40-year time span to go from a significant debt holding entity to having a rainy day fund as big as it is it's a pretty significant shift, because that's a lot of money in a relatively short period of time. Because not only did we pay off the debt, but we saved cash on top of. So anyway, long story short, stop taking it if you're not going to use it. If you're not going to use it, give it back. I think that's fair. I don't know. Does that sound? You look at me like it's crazy. It's not crazy.
When you simplify it, yeah, it doesn't sound that bad. But I think in the premise of it, it's a hell of a lot more complicated.
I don't know. I don't think it is. I mean, I really don't.
I mean, you could make that same argument for insurance.
So no, maybe. So like right now, like today was the first of the city budget meetings.
Okay,
was today. The budget doesn't actually come out until like May or June.
Right, but they presume a budget, so they presume how much it's going to cost. Right,
and they start working together on how much it's going to cost, what they want to spend on this, and what they want to spend on that, how much it's going to cost to keep this department running, how much it's going to cost to this. We're going to add some jobs over here. We're going to add some functions over there. Everybody that works here is going to get a 2% raise or whatever. They do all that math,
right?
And they're doing that.
That's pretty much what the state's doing, right?
Right, but the city version of it, just for simplification ish, simple. It's not really. It's the same as the state too, but the city version of it's doing on the presumption of what they think they're going to be bringing in the same time period, because the city of Knoxville only operates off of their percentage of 28% of the sales tax revenue that's collected in the city. And grants and other shit going on, but they're only operating off of that little chunk of the 2.25%. State takes 7%. City gets 2.25%, and then 72% of that 2.25% goes to the schools automatically. Or 68, 72, 70%, whatever. Goes to schools automatically. They only have that little 30% left over. And so they're setting their budget based on what they're projecting to do 2 months before those bills are due for the year in question. And they're doing that now. They start that now, and they work on that now. The state's doing the same thing. Now, you can do that as the state and go through and do all that math and say, we predict this, and we're expecting this, and we're going to spend this much here and this much there. And the amount the state's going to bring in that time period is X. The amount we're going to spend is Y. If X is less than Y, great. You're in a surplus budget. Beautiful. The question is, what do you do with that surplus? And how many years do you budget surplus before it becomes just wasted money because it's just sitting there? You can do the math. People do the math every day.
I don't know if it's just that crazy kind of like long term of budgets in general to where, if we saw that we had a surplus budget going into our next budget meeting and we asked for less, then the next year they're going to say, hey, well, you operated on this little bit, so
right.
You're not expected to
but
make your
again,
budget
going back
to be able to re-increase your budget.
But going back to our conversation earlier, you're not asking anybody else for money. You're the top of the food chain here as the state is concerned. So there's nobody to say, well, you get smaller budget. You are the state. You get the budget that you create for yourself. Now, your department's inside it, you get a smaller budget because you did a smaller budget.
So it has to be approved by the legislature, yeah?
Of the state.
I guess like the budget committee comes up with the budget.
Right. So if the state of Tennessee does the math and says we predict that we're going to have a significant surplus over the budget we're planning on for this year, there's nobody to tell them, well, you get less budget next year because you were under budget this year. They're the ones that set that. Now, yes, theoretically, that's what I'm asking for. If you're not going to spend the money, if you're going to have surplus over and over again, quit taking it.
Right.
That is what I'm asking for. I'm asking to be the one that says you don't need this much budget. Give it back.
The ability. The legislators have the ability to not approve that budget.
They're the ones that create the budget, though. That's what they do. That they oversee the process. They are creating the budget. They are working with the
they all
departments
collectively do it.
They're part of the process.
They're part of the process, but I don't think every single one. I'm assuming, like I said, I think there's like a budget committee that comes up with it or whatever.
The graphic I sent that I couldn't get to pull up in front of us right now, right. Governor Lee is the one who creates the budget. And the legislature gets to pick it apart and adjust it and do whatever they want with it and approve or disapprove and change it.
So the legislature has an ability to not approve the budget and alter it.
Right.
Okay.
But they're
the ones that make it. Who makes it? The legislature or governor? Because you're saying both now.
The governor is the one who makes it, but the legislature is part of the process in making it as well.
Okay.
Just like the city council met today with department heads and the mayor and everybody else to talk about the budget for next year, they're in the process while it is being made. It's not like it's a foreign concept to them that, this budget gets placed on my lap in May and I have to approve it today or the city can't continue to operate tomorrow.
I'm assuming they get input from a number of different...
Right. That's what I'm saying. They go through and they look at the department's budgets that they're asking for in the early set of the meetings, and they say, well, why is this department asking for this much money here? That doesn't make any sense. And they call somebody and they ask around and they look at it and be like, that doesn't need to be in there. Now, the way the city works, they don't have a lot of leverage. If the mayor wants it in there, the mayor can keep it in there whether the city likes it or not. The city council, rather, likes it or not. I'm pretty sure the legislature has a little bit more leverage than the city council, respectively.
Yeah.
I know it because the city of Knoxville is a mayor-heavy or mayor-strong government model, where the state of Tennessee is a weak governor model. Which is why if the governor doesn't sign it, it's passed. If something hits his desk. Now, he can veto it, but it's a process for him to veto, where refusing to sign it is a soft admission of passing it.
So there's like a 30-day clause or whatever. Like, you don't sign it, automatically goes into
desk,
effect.
Right. If it hits his desk and he doesn't sign it within whatever period of time, it's passed.
You didn't say no.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I slipped that permission slip under at the bottom of the pile.
Yep. That's exactly how it works.
Yeah. What else we got going on?
Balloons and State of the Unions.
Man, everybody's so afraid of balloons. I've never seen something so scary.
I mean, the. How do I'm trying to think of how.
I just love the hoopla that has been brought about because of this.
What kind of hoopla? Tell me more about the hoopla. Like, I mean, I've heard some hoopla too.
No, I mean, like this is all I've fucking heard. Like, I find it ridiculous as much of other crazy shit that's going on. That this has become like a rallying cry of, I don't even know. That's it. I don't even know.
All right, so it's one of those to me. Is like, how would you describe your understanding of the United States' relationship with China?
Complicated, very complicated.
Okay, would you, if on a generic, if there was a generic like survey that was like, 1 through 5, 5 meaning strongly positive, 1 meaning strongly negative, 3 being neutral, where would you rate what you understand our relationship with China?
3.
You think we have a neutral relationship with China?
I would think so.
Okay.
I think we have a heavily economic dependence on both sides. I don't think either of us would be where we're at without our trade relations.
Right.
It's a strain, but as 2 major superpowers.
But does that dependence make for a good, positive relationship?
It cuts both ways. It strained our relationships as far as tariffs, when it was accused that they were flooding the market with cheap steel or cheap aluminum,
right,
whatever it was.
I believe it was steel, if I remember you telling us the story. Yeah. Okay. And militarily,
yeah,
you think that'd be a 3 as well on our generic? And again, I asked it as you understand it.
Right. I mean, they have a larger standing army. It's arguable who
would win in a fight.
I'm not.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm sorry,
and that's not what I'm trying to tell you.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm trying to focus on this, and I apologize. I know I interrupt a lot. I apologize.
I probably do it sometimes too. The military. I mean, that's one thing that's always in the back of, I'm sure, of both of military leaders' minds. Of you're always comparing yourself. If shit hit the fan,
right?
What could happen? What would happen?
Sure.
But militarily, I mean, Taiwan's always been a major dispute for decades. It's still officially, I think, on our book. I forget what the very vague wording of it is, but
right. We acknowledge we acknowledge the one China policy, but we believe that Taiwan is an independent nation.
Yeah,
is essentially how it works out. It's well, those two things don't line up.
Right.
Either Taiwan is part of China or it's not. But you're saying both things at the same time. That's how the U.S. has treated them.
Right. And then China's push into the South China Sea is complicated things more. Like they're literally creating islands, like shipping out sand and stuff,
right.
And build more islands.
Right. And then they get their international waters pushed
and I'm assuming that's what it is. Yeah, it essentially pushes out the international waters.
Okay, so now, same survey question, but instead of your opinion on it, what you believe the general public's feelings on it are.
I don't know.
I would think that the general. My version is whichever 1 or 5 is the worst version on all aspects. I think it's a very strained relationship. I acknowledge the dependency. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you on the dependency being a thing.
So how do you go less from one when we're at war? Like we are literally, they are our arch nemesis.
Nemesis. I mean,
that'll be multiple.
On the same thing, how would you treat our relationship with Russia? Would you put that as a 2 just because we're not in open war with them? We're in a proxy war?
I'd say about the same, 3.
You think we have a neutral relationship with Russia?
Yeah.
I don't understand how you come up with these determinations.
Are we at war with them?
No.
Okay.
Well, we're at economic war with them. We've sanctioned them to the maximal amount that we are capable of.
Sanction them or sanction Russian businesses?
Sanction Russia, Russian government at large. They're not allowed to do business with any of the UN countries. They can't buy weapons or non-weapons.
They can't?
Not from any UN partners.
Okay.
Not UN, NATO, excuse me.
Yeah, so we cut them off from the world.
I mean, everybody but China, North Korea, and Iran, more or less.
Well, we made that decision for the UN?
Yeah, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole and argue that point because it doesn't matter. No.
I'm pretty sure any vote has to be a unanimous vote.
Okay.
Or is that maybe that's just for entry?
Right. Well, I mean, so if it has to be a unanimous vote, we certainly made the decision to be a part of this exclusionary venture, then yes. But...
Okay. Again, that's a relationship between Russia and if we cut them off from the UN buying oil or whatever. I think the EU just cut off diesel purchases from Russia or whatever. For the most part, it's just been businesses and oligarchs more often than not.
Okay.
I don't know how many sanctions are against the Russian government itself. How do you sanction a government?
I mean, same. I mean, if the governments buy things, and if you want them to buy things on the international market, or at least from a, I don't know, economically speaking, half, 2/3 of the world market is off the table for them because we, as NATO, said so.
Yeah.
They can't sell they can't export except to a certain short list of countries that they were before.
There's a will, there's a way.
I can't.
We've gotten around sanctions. They've gotten around sanctions.
Sure, I agree with that. I can't.
So are we at a 1 with them too?
Do what?
Are we at a 1 with them? 0.5?
I would say we're at a 1 with them as well. Yes.
Gotcha. So what's all-out war? If you're already at the bottom at 1, what's
I mean,
worse?
it would be a
What's
0.
worse?
If 1 is a very terrible relationship, 0 would be a no relationship because somebody's dead.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know. I threw that survey question really quick together in my head. I didn't have it all prepped up for you. I'm on the extreme bad end, and you're on the perfectly neutral end, which I'll agree. We should meet somewhere in the middle because that's probably more like reality. I don't think we're in a good relationship with China. I don't think we're in a good relationship with Russia. Do you think that the United States has spying apparatus inside China as we speak?
Yeah.
Do you think we take pictures from our satellites as they fly overhead of Chinese military bases and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Do you think China does that to us?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think China would shoot down a balloon that they thought was spying over their country?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why the big deal to me about the first balloon, which isn't the first balloon, it's like the 7th in the last 4 or 5 years, but the one that they shot off, they finally shot down over the after it left the Carolinas under the ocean.
Right.
The big deal with that one to me is that it was seen by civilians first, because apparently this is not the first one.
Who said civilians saw it first?
Well, it was reported. It was reported to the public by a civilian first. The first sighting of it that went public was an airline pilot that saw it flying over like Wyoming or some shit like that. Now, yes, did NORAD or some shit like that know about it? For sure. Okay. It was reported to the public prior, like when it was in Alaska or flying over Canada.
No.
It was after it flew over some military sites in Wyoming. Who reported it first?
I don't know.
My understanding of it, which could be wrong, because I could be wrong about everything, but my understanding of the first reporting of it was you could see it from the ground in Wyoming. Like you could just look up and say, hey, there's a big white balloon floating around up there. What's that?
Yeah.
And a pilot had noticed it who was flying a commercial airliner in that area. To which, the Pentagon commented, yeah, we're aware of it, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the whole question is, well, what the hell is it? And no answers. And then somebody came out and said, I'm pretty sure it's a spy balloon that the Chinese are using, which they were 100% certain of it because it's not a new thing. They've been doing it for a while. This is just the first one that we found out about as a public. Because apparently, like I said, there was one that was, I think they shot it down over Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently it was one that flew like right over Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
I think there was like 2. There was one in the previous Biden administration. I think I only read about 4. And then they said there was 2 others in Trump's administration. One, I guess, that did go over Florida. One was just over in like the Southeast Asia, like Guam and Indonesia area, that are territories basically.
Right. And so they're flying these balloons, spying on us. Which, okay, again, I acknowledge that they're spying on us in every possible way they can. To me, the reason it's a big deal is that it's either this one seemed more obvious, or the timing was weird. It's like confusing because there was Pompeo or whatever supposed to go over there for a visit.
Who?
Not
Blinken.
Blinken, excuse me. Was supposed to go over there and visit, which he canceled because of this event.
I don't know if he canceled it because of it. It wasn't, from what I've read, it wasn't a hard meeting anyway. I think he said, like, I'm going to go visit China, but there was never an exact date. Because even the China said that we didn't have an exact date that he was going to come over. And he was always like, hey, I'll come see you soon.
I guess to me, the reason to kind of simplify it, I suppose, is the reason it's a big deal is that I agree, we're spying on China, we're spying on Russia, Russia's spying on us, China's spying on us. I agree that is a norm, but we don't see it. Like, we don't see it it's not something we just say, oh, hey, here's an instance, here is a specific event showing that this foreign power is spying on us, whether it's a neutral relationship or a one or whatever the fuck it is in between. There's a foreign power whom we have at least strained relationships on, and however you want to break that down, who is openly spying on us. Here's a story about it. It's not like a covert thing. Like, it's not some of these where they have these kids that come over to go to school here, but they're actually, sent over here intentionally to go to schools and get close to people. Like, so there's some lady apparently come over and buddied up with somebody in Texas. They were chasing around a bunch of Republicans. They were like high on the NRA, like high up in the NRA and high up in some of the Republican Party stuff.
Oh yeah. Never heard about that.
And she was just fucking everybody and getting as much out of them as they can and sending it back or whatever, which is good old fashioned spy shit. I get it, but
it's called honeypot,
right? But it's not as obvious as a balloon floating over your house,
right?
And I think that's what kind of freaked people out, is that like this is blatantly obvious and it's in mass. Where, this one there's a specific target of this guy in Texas or the specific target of this information from this university who's doing research on a thing. But this is all of us,
right,
universally and openly. And I think that's what freaked people out about it. And then they shot another one down in Alaska, or off the coast of Alaska today.
But you're of the mindset we should have shot that down over U.S. territory.
I mean, to me, if I don't know. To me, like I have a hard time believing we didn't see it before it got to Alaska, like the one we shot down today. Like, it's like, NORAD didn't at least pick out there was something floating this direction and didn't figure out what it was before it got over land in the Pacific, or before it got between Alaska and like way out in the Yukon Territory or some shit like that where there's nothing. Yes, they would have to talk to Canada, be like, hey, we're going to shoot this thing down over your land. Can we go shoot it down, pick it up, whatever?
It's possible.
I'm saying, like, I have a hard time.
I think the one they just shot down, they said, was about the size of a car. So, I mean,
right.
It's not like they're tracking an airplane. They're tracking something pretty small, 60 feet up in the air, moving really slowly. That could be a fucking
60,000 feet up in the air.
Sorry, 60,000 feet up in the air.
Well, but the first one was like the size of a school bus, is what they said.
I thought it was like 3 school buses.
Or something. It's big. Whatever. Like, a school bus is big enough. Again, I acknowledge what you mean as far as tracking this blip, this tiny little thing on a radar, but I don't know. I just feel like it's. I feel like that's. I guess I thought that was within the capability of our defense systems to at least figure out that there's something there, and then scramble a jet or whatever and figure out exactly what it is.
Yeah, I would have thought we had something we could get a little closer to it. Like, I don't think helicopters can fly at that height.
Well, but it's not. But again, what we know from the Obama administration and the Trump administration versions of it, we know it exists. Do we not have protocols in place on how to handle them? We know these things exist. We know they're happening. But it seems to me that this one specifically, we didn't know what to do with it once we figured out what it was. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would think that if it happens once, okay, that was weird. It happens twice, all right, we need to figure out a plan on how to deal with this if it happens again. That's what I would do, I think. I'd say, this is intentional. It's clearly intentional on their part. They're going to do it again. Let's figure out a protocol. And, hey, we shoot a couple of them down over the Pacific. Maybe they'll stop wasting their money and sending them over here because we're going to keep shooting them down for them. I don't know. I would think you would set up at least some sort of if-then scenario, which doesn't seem to be the case because it waited until it got all the way across the country and shot it down over the Outer Banks.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I guess that's what I think is weird about it.
I just loved all the conspiracy theories that came out around it.
Ooh, I didn't hear any conspiracy theories other than
it was an EMP and that it was virally loaded and it was spreading another COVID scare in the world.
I mean,
yeah, sure, shrug your shoulders because it's plausible theory.
It's good conspiracy theory. I mean, I would say the plausible. What do you mean? What does plausible mean? Is it?
Do I need to define plausible for you?
I mean, I think it would be. I think
believable. That it is something that could happen is plausible.
Okay, I think it's something that could happen in the realm of functionality. I don't think it's something that China would be dumb enough to do. Does that still make it plausible? I think the capability is there. I think you could do that. You could, instead of have a balloon with, I mean, the only deaths on U.S. soil during World War II were what?
Sorry, reasonably believable.
Okay,
not the ability for it to happen.
All right, so that's why. But plausible to me means it could happen. Yes, it could happen.
Plausible deniability, believable deniability.
Right. But the only deaths on U.S. soil in World War or on mainland soil in World War II were what?
In the Aleutian Islands?
No, it was in Washington State because Japan was sending up balloons with bombs on them.
Right.
And I think they said 7 made it over, and
I don't know if anybody actually died from it.
I believe there's 3 people that died. I think is what the number was.
I don't think anybody died from it.
Either way,
we also lost people in the Aleutian Islands, but at that time they weren't Americans.
We lost a bunch of people in Hawaii, but in mainland
Americans, right?
In mainland the lower 48, I guess is the better way to say that phrase. But my point is, it's plausible because it's happened before. And it happened in almost 100 years ago before.
Okay.
Is that wrong? No.
You're not
true.
wrong in your facts, no.
It's factually possible to happen.
Okay.
Now, is it likely that China would make such a brazen act?
Keep our finger on the trigger at all times just because it's happened in the past. 9/11 happened. We should be ready at any point just to annihilate anyone just in case. Just because it's happened before.
Annihilate anyone.
Yeah.
I would think...
Because you don't know where that threat's coming from. We need to be ready at all times just in case, because shit has happened before.
Uh-huh.
Are we advocating for having that level of preparedness all the time? We did it during the Cold War, and I shudder to think how much money we spent on having bombers 24/7, 365 flying through the skies.
Okay, and are the bombers stopping in action or escalating in action?
They were prepared for anything.
Okay. Well, because a bomber's not going to shoot down a balloon.
Okay.
I don't understand. I don't understand where you're going into Cold War scenarios. It's the same scenario that I was going with the whole balloon bullshit.
It sounded like you were advocating that we needed to be prepared.
We didn't have a program that says if we identify a Chinese balloon floating into our airspace, we should have a protocol for what we do with that.
Right.
I believe that we have the capability of being aware of it, or being aware of something, and then some sort. I would. Yes, I believe we have the capabilities currently to figure out.
We were aware of it. Yes.
Yeah. And then I believe there should be a protocol for that, and apparently the protocol is just to let it float around until people freak out and then shoot it down later. That's what the protocol seems to be.
I'm sure the protocol was assess.
Okay. Okay. And that's fine. If that's the protocol, then that's what it is. But I do think
that it wasn't a threat. They were smart enough to know that that's not a balloon filled with a bunch of COVID.
Okay.
That's not a balloon with fucking EMP devices, because they would have blown that shit off a long time ago. Maybe it's taking pictures, but hey, they got satellites. They can take better pictures.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can't?
No.
They can't?
No.
How?
How what?
How are they not able to take better pictures?
Well, because the satellite doesn't stop moving. That balloon can. The satellite doesn't stop moving.
Correct.
You can't stop a satellite in orbit to stay over a target for a longer period of time.
But that balloon did?
It did. It had the ability to change course.
It controls wind at 60,000 feet.
It had the ability to maneuver, yes.
I don't know about how maneuverable it really was.
Okay.
I'd say it's more at the will of a jet stream.
And while I agree that they have cameras,
it just happened to follow the jet stream too?
They have cameras
they were just saving energy.
They have cameras that are capable of taking pictures of your butthole from space. I made that joke last week too.
Right.
But that same camera at, I don't know, a third of the distance would probably be a little bit more detailed than I would think so. That would be the logical leap.
I don't think so.
maybe you don't put the more expensive camera on a balloon that's probably going to get shot down or going to end up in the ocean somewhere and you don't get it back. I don't know.
But maybe. It's plausible.
It's possible.
Plausible or possible?
Why do you do it? Why would you send the balloon if it's not doing more than you already do? I mean,
I've seen one, I can't remember today or yesterday, there was some theory that maybe China was just testing what we would do with something like that.
Yep. I mean,
I find that more believable than...
I think that's a very believable option. They've been testing what we would do if they said balloons for a decade now. And until this one, we didn't know it existed. I don't remember hearing about this at all.
You're correct.
On the prior events of it happening.
As we've said before, there's a lot of shit that goes on that we don't know about just because there's no way to tell everyone about everything that goes on a day-to-day basis.
I'm not arguing whether we should or shouldn't have known about them before. I'm just saying we don't know. We didn't know what... Okay. I don't know where to go with this. I'm so confused. I'm so confused right now.
I'm saying it's not that big of a deal.
I
agree that we should have shot it down, and we did it over the ocean. I don't think there was any reason to shoot it down over land and risk life or destruction of property. I
can agree with that. I can agree with that in principle. Yeah.
Oh, I thought in the text thing that you were against that.
I mean, I go back to like we were able to find one today and shoot it down before it made landfall. I can't help but believe that we found that one before it made landfall too. And the previous version of what do we do if it happens was assess or whatever you were saying.
Initially, yeah.
Right? So I think
we did what we did. We reached out to the Chinese. We're like, hey,
so I think
this balloon, what the fuck's going on?
So the assumption to me is that the only reason this one was shot down today was because of the craziness that followed from the one
we don't know
before. That would be my assumption of why Biden decided that we needed to shoot this one down.
It's very possible.
Because it wasn't clear what it was, other than it was about the size of a car. As I understood it.
It's just an initial report.
Right.
We haven't had days to gather intelligence yet.
But it was a balloon with the thing on it, and it came from China. We knew that much, but that was it. We didn't know. It could have been an actual balloon.
I'm not even sure if it was a balloon.
Right.
Something was shot down.
An unidentified. It's not UFO is not the term anymore. They changed that, but it was semi-identified because they knew it was Chinese. At least they say they knew it was Chinese before they shut it down. Anyway, I just like I said, I think that it's if you're in a contentious, complicated relationship with some foreign entity, even though everybody knows everybody's spying on each other, to be so blatantly obvious about it on the Chinese side, and then to be so accidentally flippant about it on the U.S. side, I think is what's the weirdest to me. Is that just let it go, because that's what we've always done. Seems weird to me. So, anyway, we talked about pride stuff. What else was going on?
Thought I read something interesting.
I bet you did. U.S. education money stuff. You sent me those amicus briefs, which I still haven't got a chance to read.
That wasn't the amicus briefs. I tried to start reading some of the amicus briefs. They're fucking long.
That's one you're giving me shit for not having an answer for.
No, that was not.
You sent this one. I was giving
you shit just for not sending me anything. I was just trying to. I would assume you had read some kind of article recently.
Oh.
That was what I had first asked you for.
The college admission cases. I did. Okay, I apologize.
Well, that's what the following story is about as well.
Right.
And I was just asking for any story that you've read recently. I just wanted to.
My reference.
You seemed to already had your mind.
I actually did go back and try to find the episode of the podcast that they talked about it. And
what podcast?
The Breaking Points podcast. Because they were talking about it, and whenever they're on topic, whatever, they reference their references while they're talking about, like, this is from whatever. And so I did go back and try to find that episode, and I couldn't find the episode. But my intent was to find the episode, listen to the parts, and pull those references up and then send you those references.
I just assumed you'd read something. So I was like, all right, send me whatever.
No, I will freely acknowledge that I don't read much.
I did stop and did not preface myself with objective article.
Yeah.
Or maybe I did. I can't remember.
No, you didn't say objective article.
Okay. I gave you a chance.
Have you listened to Breaking Points?
No.
Because whether you meant to or not, you just accused it of being biased. Because that is one of my most popular references on air.
I did not mention Breaking Points whatsoever.
I know.
Mentioning you sending me an article. I'm sure Breaking Points puts out some kind of newsletter. But when I was asking for a news article, so no, I was not associating that with Breaking Points.
Well, you just said my references are generally biased, at least. Then I mean,
yeah, just lump them all together. That's cool. Yeah, I was talking about every single thing that you have ever read.
Well, you say
biased.
when you jokingly say send me a non-biased something on this thing that you're talking about.
I'm sorry. More often than not, you have sent me biased articles that have no objectivity to them.
How many
You've sent me. You sent me opinion pieces. Opinion pieces are not articles. They're not scholarly journals or anything close to it. They are, as they are titled, an opinion piece.
Okay.
And if you look at who wrote those opinion pieces that work for organizations that obviously have a slanted view on an issue,
I will agree.
I'm sorry, I cannot take that article.
I will agree that in my trying to find some articles about the certificate of need, that those were quite biased sources. I believe we've discussed that already.
Yeah. I can't remember what the second one was. It was just some generic explainer of it, and I'm like, what is this?
The Tennessean one?
No, the Tennessee one, that was an opinion piece.
Oh.
I think you found it was a semi reputable website or whatever, but I think it was just what's blah blah blah.
Right.
This is blah blah blah.
It's it's
like a generic explainer of it, and I was like, what little I know, I knew that.
Right. I mean, I get that is one of the tough things is.
It's hard. It's hard to pick that out.
Especially when you were doing that too, though. When you were doing certificate of need stuff, you couldn't find anybody advocating for it. You couldn't even find opinion pieces the other way.
No, that was about all I found.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's so when you have a particular topic, how do you, how do you source it if there's nobody doing it?
I mean, some of that's fucking Google search engine bullshit that you have to dig to the second or third page of results.
Yeah. Be interesting. That's something to think about.
Because I did see a couple articles on the certificate of need where they referenced, I want to say it was the American Medical Association or something like that did a study on it, and I was trying to find it. I'm like, American Medical Association did a study on it, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I think I kind of found some reference to it, and it was kind of it didn't really hurt, but it didn't really help. It's kind of vague, but again, with any kind of studies, you have to look at
right, or you have
kind
to
of population size. Did we look at 2 hospitals out of 20,000 that are in the U.S. and
right,
it's
or
not a good sample size.
Two municipalities that aren't even remotely comparable.
Right,
but this one has a system. This one doesn't. And
here's New York City and Jacksboro, Mississippi,
Plano, Texas.
Yeah,
let's see how similar and different things act in these places.
Bean Station. And
so, but yeah,
it's hard.
I agree. I think it's. That's one of the things I like about Breaking Points is because they do a lot of that legwork for me, and they don't. I don't pretend they're not opinionated on their shit. That's
some of the sociology and psychology classes I've taken. It's kind of almost
well, it's going to be there anyway. It's really hard to not. I mean, Scott and Jesse do their best in their articles, and not they do their best to do it on their podcast to not.
Right. You're going to put a little bit of yourself.
But they can't help it. I mean, it's you're writing the story,
right.
And
it's on how you present it.
And you could justify
hot button words,
right? Well, you can justify that it is still news accurate, but you have a bias, and you do, and you can't help yourself but kind of put your bias into it. Now you could keep it in check, and I think Scott and Jesse do a pretty good job of that across the board in the paper more than anything. They let it go a little bit on the show, and I like that. I think it makes them more personal because I think that's one of the things because one of the things Breaking Points, they love to hate on big media. They were both out of, they both worked for different larger media organizations in the past. They both worked together at The Hill, which is a smaller but more mainstream formatted and whatever. and they left the Hill to start their own thing because they didn't want to answer anybody. And I think that's one of the questions at play, though, is like you got like the thing I like about their show specifically is that they're coming at it honestly. It's not that they're injecting their opinion on it; they're just putting their opinion with it. It's like here are the facts, and here's what I think about the facts. Not here are the parts of the facts that support what I think about the facts. You know, so like have you followed this?
I've seen with them. I thought they threw in a little more opinion, but I haven't seen a whole lot. I think most of what I've seen is the handful of times they've been on Rogan. I think one of the few
they were
clips
just on
I've
Rogan this last week.
I think I may have tried to watch something when they had an actual like show together on some channel.
It was The Hill.
Was that The Hill?
Yeah. So, like, have you heard the story about this Indian billionaire thing? It's like the fourth
richest. Lost like $50 billion in like one day.
Like fourth or fifth richest man on the planet.
Was
the richest Asian.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and lost all his money because, and so like, they're doing the story because a group did a report on this man and his companies. You know, and so they're talking about it, but they're like, hey, let's just be clear about this real quick. The group that did the report is a short selling group. They make their money by short selling companies like this guy's. So there's a motive for them to put out this report on this guy's company so that he tanks, because they make more money when his company tanks because of the way they short sell them.
right.
I don't quite understand the financial games of short selling in the front end of that, but like,
I don't know much about it either, but I assume it's basically just shitting on a company, saying they're going to fail, which scares.
Well, no, it's your
people.
betting. It's a side bet, is what it is. Is you have a stock, like
right.
The
They've already bet that it's going to fail, but then they go and influence that company actually failing by
this particular one. Yes, this story and the group. I think it was called. God, what is it called? Zeppelin, Hindenburg Group, which is genius. If they're a short selling group, they're the Hindenburg Group. It's a great name.
Right.
And so, yes, this group, that's what they do. But like a short sell in general, as I understand it, is you have the regular stock, right? Just normal stock in a company. It's a piece of paper that says you own X percentage of a company, blah, 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 whatever. And so we have all these, a short sell is it's just a side bet. You know, so you and I are playing poker. We know how to play poker, right?
Sometimes.
Right, so we're playing poker, and we sit down at the table, and I say, hey, side bet, $20 says I get further in this tournament than you do. That's what a short sell is. I'm short selling you by saying, you're going to give me $20 if I last longer in this tournament than you do. Now, it's a little bit different because I actually have skin in the game because I'm in the tournament, but I guess a better way to do it would be you sit down at the poker table to play a 2-table tournament, right? And I say $20 says, or I'll pay. Fuck, how would you do this? Yeah, $10 to anybody who wants to say that they'll go out after he does, and then anybody who wants to pitch in on the bet gets in on the bet. Right?
So you've got 2 bets going there, or you're just?
I got as many bets as I have
other
takers.
People are gonna.
I have bets as many. Like, so it would be. Yeah, I have bets as for any takers that want to take it. I got $10 over here that says Sam doesn't win this tournament. Who wants it? And then whoever takes it, I'm short selling you in the tournament. I think that's a pretty accurate analogy.
As when a short sale is a sale of an asset or stock the seller does not own, it is generally a transaction in which an investor sells borrowed securities in anticipation of a price decline.
Right. So they're I forgot the borrowing part of it.
Yeah, I forgot about not owning it, basically.
Yeah, I knew there was no direct ownership part of it. You're buying it for. Let me borrow that.
Well, wasn't the whole like GameStop thing? Was that short selling as well?
It was a like a Reddit group that was
it's like, hey, everybody, let's buy some stock. So everyone started buying stock, right, which makes the stock go up.
Right. And what their intent was to kill the short sale, because there was big players out there. Somebody that knew how to play the game saw that there were players out there short selling GameStop because they thought GameStop was going to die, which isn't a bad bet, really. I mean, you know, you don't go out to buy video games anymore. You just stream them or download them like anything else.
Right.
And so people were starting to short sell, like the normal people, normal investors and stuff were starting to short sell. And so this guy says, hey, who wants to get in on this? We're gonna run up GameStop prices, and we'll make some money on it because we're gonna run up the prices and then sell. As the momentum goes and we sell out and we all make some money, but it's also going to kill all these big, Wall Street investors that are betting on losers. And so it was as I understood it was both a, hey, we'll make some money, but it's also a fuck you to the system and the way it works.
I heard something about the 2008 financial crisis, that a lot of those hedge managers and things like that were doing the same thing, where they had side bets on it failing, but also knew that what they were doing as far as giving out high price or high risk loans and whatnot.
Right.
But they also at the same time had bet against themselves.
Right.
Basically.
Well, but if you think about it as it turned out, and the question, like as Steve Carell says in The Big Short, they knew.
I haven't seen that movie.
They knew. Like
right.
his.
Right. They knew. As I said, that's why they bet.
Well, no, but they knew that they were going to get bailed out.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're betting on it to lose, but when it loses, you get paid anyway.
Right.
Because you got bailed out, then you win twice.
Yeah.
So you're actually incentivized to make it lose because you're going to win on your lose bet, and you're going to get bailed out, so you're still going to keep your front end to boot. And so it's like, which is I don't understand. Like I understand the, what's the word I'm looking for here? I understand the incentive to want to protect the totality of the economy by not letting certain things happen as a government. Like I understand the incentive to get in on that, or to try to hedge against that, try to protect the economy from things happening. But I can't for the life of me figure out how it's still a good idea.
Banks were kind of a weird thing because I can't imagine what it would have been if the largest banks had just folded under.
Because that's a good, because the question is like, what happens? So if I bought my house, or if I'm buying my house and you're the bank and I'm paying you the mortgage and you get all this bullshittery going on and you go bankrupt, well, who owns the papers to my house?
Whoever buys the bank.
Okay, but does that affect me?
Yeah, you now have a new lender.
Sure.
Basically.
I mean, I've had 4 lenders since the day I bought. Like the day I bought my house,
right.
The mortgage company that sold me my house,
right.
sold my mortgage to somebody else.
Yeah,
which is a whole other screwy set of
right,
bullshit.
That's a weird thing. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, can the bank that bought the bank out of bankruptcy change the contract? I don't think so.
Shouldn't be able to.
Right. So for me, the homeowner, nothing changes. I still have the rights to continue paying my mortgage, and as long as I continue paying mortgage as agreed, I will eventually own the house outright. So who is it protecting to keep that first bank open?
I'd say first off, in your scenario, you're going off the premise that I guess you would be the only person in that bank, and that you don't have an account with the bank, but you just owe the bank money. So essentially, if the bank folds,
I mean, most people
you're just looking at who else you owe.
Most people, okay, so as
most people have money. I'm talking about people that have money in that bank.
Okay, right. Most people.
So
don't,
if that bank goes bankrupt, which means they're saying they don't have money anymore.
I don't know
that bank is expected to have everyone else's money still, no matter who else buys it.
But I think
that's where I was saying it gets really complicated, and you had all these assets that people had tied into this bank.
I don't think it is normal practice anymore that my home loan is somebody else's savings. Like traditionally, like old school, I think that was the way it worked when you had little mom and pop banks, like actual like normal people operating a bank. It would be like, like It's a Wonderful Life. The whole town gives me their money and I hold it in here. And then I take that money and I loan it to Bobby because Bobby wants to build a house.
Right.
And Bobby pays me that back in increments with a little bit of interest. I, as the bank, keep a little of that interest. That's how I pay my personal bills, and that's how I feed myself.
Right.
And then I kick you and all the other people that are saving with me a percentage back for letting me lend that out.
Okay.
I don't think that's how it works anymore. I don't think, like, you can't go to First Tennessee Horizon, whatever the fuck it's called now, and get a home loan. Like, commercial,
Directly
like
through them, no. Yeah, they've got lenders they participate with for home loans.
retail banks that people use and even businesses use for day-to-day operations as a bank don't do mortgages anymore. So it's a good question. I don't know one, it's the Fed's money, which is a separate thing. A lot of money that mortgage companies are kicking out is them borrowing it from the Fed.
Right.
Or there's investment groups that are investing in these banks because they say, hey, we got $100 million. You hold on this you go out and lend this $100 million for us at 3%, kick us back 2.5%. You keep 0.5%. We're all happy campers. And so back to the original scenario, all those investment groups that invested in the bank, they lose their money, maybe. I don't know. Wouldn't they just be the ones that take ownership of the assets of the bank? Or wouldn't the assets of the bank split up among the investment group?
I don't know if there's different terms to bankruptcy. I don't know.
That's not
my wheelhouse.
But in a logical sense, I understand this. The industry that we're discussing is uber complicated. But in a logical sense, how would you think it would work if the bank that you're getting your mortgage from goes out of business? Your gut answer was somebody buys that bank out of bankruptcy. They buy the assets of that bank at a discount.
That's just the way I assume things happen. If somebody goes bankrupt, somebody's going to buy it.
Right. And I agree with you. That would be the logical way that happens. And so the investors should be covered because the new owner of the bank should be kicking back to the investors because you don't get to not. Or the investors just lose. You lost your bet as an investor.
That's probably more likely the case.
Which is fine. I mean, who cares? You lost your investment. If you're an investment group and you invest in a bank that does shady banking practices, maybe you should lose your money. Because then maybe you're going to be a little bit more careful about who you invest with in the future so they don't fuck it up. That would be, again, this is the logical version of it, obviously not the reality.
All right.
Or at least the logical to me version of it.
Can investment groups be LLCs?
Yeah.
So essentially they wouldn't even have to be on the hook for money that they did owe.
Yeah.
Man, economics is great.
I mean, it's weird. I mean, obviously, I own 2 LLCs, so I see the value in separating some things.
Right.
And I don't know. And maybe it's selfish. I'd have to think about it. I mean, it's selfish, but should or shouldn't it be? I don't know. I mean, for some of the LLC stuff, it doesn't matter. Like for the studio, for the production company LLC, it doesn't matter. If I get sued from something the production studio is doing, I'm going to be individually sued probably with it, so it doesn't really matter.
No.
Maybe. I don't know. It depends on how good my lawyer is in separating the two.
True.
But at the end of the day, it's likely that I will both get sued as a person as well as the LLC getting sued. And so the assets will be coming. They'll come down after all the assets, no matter what.
Sure.
But I could see the principle makes sense to me that, okay, I've built a business. It operates. It does its thing. I don't know that it's... yeah. It seems logical to me that a misgiving on the business side shouldn't have to come back to my actual personal bottom line. What are you looking at?
Story. A new Tennessee lawmaker walks into the Capitol building wearing a dashiki. House GOP suggests he explore other careers.
Speak. Who is it?
Representative Justin Pearson, Democrat from Memphis, wearing his dashiki in the House chambers.
But it's February. But it's February.
What you mean?
Big month?
Yeah. What's your point?
We're in the month of February?
Yeah.
What is the month of February?
Black History Month.
Why would some ridiculous lawmaker say you shouldn't wear a dashiki in February? We should all be wearing them, right?
Don't know. I was trying to figure out if this was in the House or if this was federal.
Text it to me. I mean, if it says Memphis, then yes, it's state.
It can also be a
I would think they would say
federal
like
House representative.
I think they would say like West Tennessee or something like that. Like, I don't think Tim Burchett is introduced as Representative House of Reps Knoxville. He's introduced as House of Rep Tennessee. Or maybe even East Tennessee.
Yeah, it probably would just say TN and then like maybe their district number or something.
Yeah. Tennessee's newest lawmaker was sworn in Thursday. When is this story from? February 10th. Why was he sworn in Thursday? He's filling a vacancy in House District 86 in Memphis, but people were more focused on what Pearson was wearing. Pearson, a black man, wore his hair combed out in a fro, loose-fitting pullover dashiki. This dress is resistance. This afro is resistance. What we are doing here is subversive to the status quo, and I think that's going to contribute to make people uncomfortable. All right, get you some. Okay. Pearson's attire did make Rep. Hawk from Greenville uncomfortable. Hawk, in remarks on the floor, made a dig at Pearson as he recounted the time he wasn't allowed on the floor by former Tennessee House Speaker DeBerry. I showed up on a Monday night on two wheels trying to get in here, and I did not have a tie on. And she reminded me, Rep. Hawk, if you don't have a tie on, you don't get to walk in that door. But there are no written rules on attire according to the 113th General Assembly Permanent Rules of Order. Okay. I mean, I don't really give a shit that he wore a dashiki or whatever, but at the same time, if he wore it with the intent to be disruptive. Did you see what Rep. Green Marjorie was wearing at the State of the Union? Did you see anything about that?
I saw it. That's some weird white outfit with like a fur lined kind of weird jacket.
I heard
thing.
a bunch of Hunger Games references. What I kept hearing, Hunger Games or Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, and then cinema and some
calling Biden a liar.
Yeah,
Biden the next day like called her out for it. He was like, no. He's like, read this, and like had like the pamphlet from some of them. He didn't. I don't know if he kind of purposefully did it to come off as trying to be a little nicer on the State of the Union, be like, I'm not going to name names. But he's like, there are members in your caucus that are advocating for abolishing Social Security or entitlements, basically. And like, liar, liar. And he's like, here's
abolish?
the brochure that so-and-so put out.
I don't think it was abolish. They want
to cut entitlements.
Right. I
think one wants to have like a yearly sunset. I think the most extreme was like a yearly sunset.
Okay, so
that they'd have to be the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security.
This is the ridiculous of the argument is that especially the harder section of the right, the Rep Greens or whatever, their sales pitch is strengthen Social Security, which is a code word to make it fiscally feasible. You have to reduce how much is going out. And so the way to reduce what's going out is you raise the age of when you can take it.
You see what's happening in France after they did that shit?
No. The French will riot over anything, though, man. They're some intensely protesty people. I haven't heard what they've done, but tell me.
I'd say they rotate on par or protest on par with the U.S. But no, they I believe they've passed it or are trying to pass it, raising the retirement age by 2 years. And they had a bunch of strikes because of that. There's a big strike going on with like the healthcare service in Great Britain right now. Like a bunch of their nurses and doctors are striking.
For what?
Part of the healthcare system. I think for more pay.
I don't know what to say. I don't know. I can't figure out our system. I have a fucking chance of figuring out what's going on over there.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't like the State of the Union. I didn't watch the State of the Union. I just can't. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Nah, there was a hockey game on. I was watching the hockey game.
I Breaking Points did a live stream of it, and then they rebroadcast it as a podcast without the actual State of the Union. So they had like 30 minutes of them talking about, here's what we've heard. This is the script that's been leaked and this kind of stuff, because it always happens that way.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, the president's on the floor. And for the podcast version, it fades out, and then it fades back in, and they start talking about it in post. Where the live version, you actually sat and you watched it with them, and then whatever. And, it looks like Biden did a good job of staying clear and coherent, which is good.
Yeah, apparently McCarthy even clapped for a handful of things that he said.
Yeah, well, that was a funny one. In a couple of days ago, McCarthy's like, "I'm not going to tear up the printed copy of his speech,"
Yeah,
which was a fun little dig. I liked it. It was fun. It's dumb, but it's fun. And so, the question to me is forget the content of it, but we're talking about Rep. Green and that kind of bullshit. I'm not sure. She's wrong. Or she's not. I don't know. She's half wrong. She's wrong. She's right in the sense that the code word game that the Republicans are playing is we're trying to strengthen it. And to strengthen it, we need to make it financially viable. And to make it financially viable, we have to reduce the number of people taking it. That's the code word that's the code that the Republicans are using in this game. Where the reality is you're going to cut some people out of it. So the Democratic version of it is the Republicans want to cut Social Security. But both things are true, right?
I think he was focusing more on that this was something that would have to be reapproved by Congress, not the spending of it, because I'm assuming that's approved every fiscal quarter or whatever. That the fact of keeping the entitlements was something that has been instilled in our American tradition for
the
40,
whole thing,
50 years.
Right, but the
would
whole
have
thing
to be
was that
re-voted upon and re-agreed upon every year.
The whole thing with the McCarthy getting elected to Speaker in the first place,
right.
The holdouts were, you're going to put it on the floor. We're going to hold the budget hostage if there aren't cuts.
We don't know what kind of wheeling and dealing he had to do to get
right,
that.
But that was part of that. That was an open conversation that was happening. It was that we are going to as Republicans who are fiscally conservative, we're going to cut spending.
I want to know how much they had him by the nuts for him to agree to if one person calls for
They had him by the nuts a lot. But my point is that this was one of the items that they were going to say we are not going to approve a deficit budget. We're not going to approve a lifting of the debt ceiling without an agreement that we're going to get budget cuts in the future. Right? And so right now the debt ceiling's already been hit. The Department of the Treasury gets to play the extraordinary circumstances card, and we'll be sitting on this extraordinary circumstances thing until summer, to when it get July or whatever is when it gets real serious, and they either have to lift the debt ceiling or they have to cut something out. And the Republicans that were holding out on McCarthy, one of their things is we're going to cut shit out, and that's where the whole conversation about cutting Social Security or strengthening Social Security, depending on which side of the aisle you're on, is at play. And so I wasn't trying to go down this part of the rabbit hole, but
well, then don't.
But to go back to
Let's go on to something else.
To go back to what I was trying to go to is I don't know that I think it's a bad thing that we have a contentious and raucous and loud audience for a State of the Union.
Why?
I don't know if it's a bad thing to. Because what is the State of the Union? What's the point?
For the president to lay out what's going on in the next year, how things are, how he wants to progress, things he wants to accomplish.
Now,
where is civility expected?
But before you go down there, that's a fine question. But is it the role of the president? Of the list of things that the president has gone over, not just Biden this year, but Trump and Biden, or and Obama and Clinton and Bush and whatever before, are the State of the Unions and the goals, the aspirations, this is what we're trying to do things, is that the role of the president?
Yeah.
It's so when the executive branch says, I want to do this domestically, that is the role of the executive branch.
don't know what you mean. Is it the role for him to say that? I don't understand what you're asking.
I mean, he can say whatever he wants to say. He's a human being. He's supposed to be. He's in America. He's free speech or whatever. But as the role of the job, as the president of the United States,
is it his role?
Is he supposed to be making domestic policy?
In a sense, yes. I mean, I don't expect him to make a shit ton of executive orders, no, but he is the commander-in-chief.
Of the Army. Well, military, excuse me.
Correct.
That's what that title is. That's just Army stuff.
Right. But it's not his only title.
Okay. But you said he is the commander-in-chief, and so it's just...
That's just what we generally refer to him as an official title.
Now, again...
Fucking A.
We'll go back to social studies class, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understand the divisions of power, the three branches of government, the legislative branch makes the laws.
Right.
The judicial branch makes sure that those laws are within the Constitution.
Yeah.
And the executive branch executes those laws.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So if your job is to execute the laws, not to make them, what does it matter what you want them to be?
Is he making laws?
I mean, he is trying to set an agenda, which part of that agenda will be making laws, yes.
All right, whatever.
What is my understanding of the way government is supposed to work incorrect?
I don't get the pushback on him coming out and saying things he would like to do. I don't think it's things that are going to happen.
I didn't say that it was things that are going to happen either.
Okay.
But he is standing up in front of the body who is the one that actually gets to make the laws, telling them what he wants. And is it a problem that the people that actually get to do what he's asking them to do might disagree with that vocally at the time? No, I don't. I mean, there's some decorum, whatever. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, this is like, do we want them to agree all the time? Do we want them to just sit there and clap and say, "Yay, good job"? I don't know. Like, I don't know if my point is, I don't know if it's a bad thing. Now, the specific example that we're talking about, yeah, she's an idiot. I agree. But
so, what's acceptable to you?
I mean, I'm not saying hers was unacceptable.
What
she's
civil
wrong,
discourse is acceptable in State of a Union? If you were an elected representative representing your constituents and you're at the State of the Union where the President of the United States is doing what he does every fucking year, and it's been done for years, I think it may even be a requirement.
I think you're right.
It's kind of those weird things where I don't think it's technically a requirement, but it's expected for the President to come up at least once a year and let everyone know what's been going on and what the goal for the future is.
And again, not to be overly literal, but the phrase to me says, here's where we are.
Right.
That's what the title of the speech is here's where we are.
Right.
But that's never the content of the speech.
Okay.
Maybe it's part of the content of the speech, but it's not the totality of the content. I don't know. I don't.
I'm sure every governor that does a State of the State address does the same fucking thing.
Okay.
I don't get the pushback on this.
I don't know.
You don't think he should be standing up saying things that he would like?
I don't know. I think there's part of me that thinks it is a problem with our perception as a citizenry of the system at large, because I would argue that the majority of people would sit there and watch that, and whether they're Republican or Democrats, that like, this is where we're going because this is what he wants to do. I would think that would be a generic outlook from normal people watching it. This is what he wants to do. Well, really what he wants to do is start his re-election campaign, but that's to decide. I don't know, what's the point, I guess? And so what does it matter if it's decorum or not, I guess? Like, what does it do? It's an interesting little punctuation in the process of a term of a president, but I don't understand what we're supposed to get out of it. And whether it matter, like whether decorum matters, I guess is an aside. But I guess I don't understand what we're supposed to get out of it. Like, why is it such a big deal? I mean,
I think most people would agree with you, and that's why most people don't put much weight behind the State of the Union. That's why most people don't watch it.
It's the most watched non-sporting event annually. I believe there are stats to prove that. Mostly because you don't have a choice. Most of the big channels take it over anyway. It might be different now that there's so much streaming and stuff like that. But
I don't know. It's like you care a lot about something you don't care about. It's kind of what I'm seeing coming from you.
Sure.
It's like this really pisses you off about something you don't give a shit about, but it pisses you off.
Because everybody gives a shit about it.
Why do you care?
Because
go back to just not caring about it.
Because my great grand vision of the future is not okay with either people being incorrectly functional in the system or continuing to not give a shit.
Is he up there making laws? Is he breaking the law by making laws doing the State of the Union?
I didn't say he was breaking the law.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I said in that my
What
ranting,
is he doing wrong by saying things that he would like to have happen in the legislature?
Because to me,
is it your fault for thinking that he's just going to make every one of these things a law? And people are just stupid enough to think just because he says it that shit's coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah. People are dumb enough to believe it. Yeah. That's a problem in and of itself.
Okay.
Because people are going to vote accordingly, whether it's for or against. People are going to elect a Democrat because they want what Biden said to happen. Or they're going to elect a Republican because they don't want Biden said to happen.
Okay.
Neither of which is reality.
Okay. I'm glad we both realize this.
But people are making decisions based on this.
Okay. So should we cut out campaigning and things like, I want to be in that position and I want this to happen and this to happen, this to happen. You're going to say, fuck you? I know you're not going to make that happen. You can't say that shit.
Actually, this has been a long-running issue of mine. Yes.
I mean, I agree.
I complained to death about how many times Mayor Jacobs references the schools in a campaign speech.
Right.
Does it have anything to do with his job? No.
No.
And why do I think that's such a big deal? Because people are going to make a decision based on what he is saying, even though it has nothing to do with the job he's asking for.
Right.
Which is exactly what I just said about the President of the State of the Union.
You're never going to stop single-issue voters. People will pick and choose what they want to vote for someone.
I may never stop them, but I'm going to keep complaining about them, and I'm going to keep bitching about the what those single-issue voters are causing to the system. Because this system
good luck waking them up. I'm sorry, but
you're right, and it's a futile effort. And I'm going to sit here and I'm bang my head against the wall, and we're going to record another 250 episodes of me just beating the shit out of myself about how fucking annoying it is. That this is that like these norms.
Hey, you know what might fix that?
Do it.
Compulsory voting.
No, it won't. I think
it wouldn't fix it all. I think it would fix some problems.
I think ranked choice. I think the general breakdown of the party, which I'm hopeful we're getting to.
See, I don't think I love the idea of ranked choice, but I think until we can get to at least like 50% voting percentage, I don't know how much of any kind of voting system really helps. If you're not getting input from the constituents, I mean, everyone's going to be pissed off.
You're not wrong, but I mean, forced in. But I don't disagree that I would like everybody to vote, but compulsory is its own set of problematic. The problem is that
can't make me do it.
Like, okay, so here's the solution. This is off the top of my head. It's not going to be great, but it's going to be a framework that we can build on for the future. The solution is ranked choice and some sort of system that says if a certain percentage of the electorate is not involved, something has to happen. And I'm not exactly sure how to break that down. Yeah. But like if you don't get to 50%, if 50% of the voting populace does not partake in the ranked choice system, then we will do it again. And then we'll do it again. I don't know.
Yeah, it just dawned on me how much like you hated waiting in line, having to go in and vote. But if we did go to ranked choice, you imagine how much longer people are going to be standing there like, ooh, man, I don't know. This person over this person?
But I don't. Like the only time this is the first time, this last November was the first time I've ever had any issues with the timeliness of voting. Yeah. Now Elaine Davis, the dumb cunt that she is, just at least floated the idea of getting rid of early voting. Did you hear about that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, somebody talked her into putting it on the calendar, and a bunch of people shit their bed, and she's like, "Oh, never mind, I was just kidding."
That was a misclick. Did I say that?
Yeah, so I need to get a hold of her. I need to talk to her too. Probably shouldn't call her cunt on air and then ask her to come on the show.
Probably not.
I don't care anymore. Randy Pace did come through. He gave me some contacts for Mr. Briggs. I haven't called him yet. I tried to get Sam too. He said no.
I said no, thank you.
Why not, man? You could do it. I believe in you.
I told you exactly why.
Why would he? What would you say that would make him not come on? Past what? If he listens to more than 20 minutes of me talking,
hey, you're not going to get hold of him directly. I don't believe.
Right.
You're going to talk to an assistant.
it's process, yeah.
Right, which screens calls.
Right. I'm trying to dump process. I'm trying to dump process on you here. This is me trying to delegate.
Right.
He's going to screen calls. You're right. It's somebody else. Actually, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know.
I'm assuming I'm going to get put on that list of like, yeah, don't worry about calling that guy back.
No, this one I think with where we're at with Briggs, they're going to be like, oh, this is the one that Randy was talking about.
Maybe. I mean, how many conversations does Briggs have in a day? I don't know.
I think there's.
I'm not saying Randy doesn't have some pull. I'm just saying
there are people of consequence that matter.
I would like to think that man has a lot of things on his mind on a day-to-day basis, outside of just his legislative job, but just on a general day-to-day basis.
I think he's
being a human
in
being.
general. We all do. I do too.
I know.
I got a bunch of shit going on.
Right, and you forget a lot of shit too.
Sure, but I don't know. Depends who's telling me about it.
That's true.
You know, I mean, if somebody brought it up,
Hey, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I think Randy's got enough that says, "Hey, this guy's going to call you. Talk to him."
yeah,
I think that's enough that you're going to say, "Okay."
I don't know. I just don't foresee the conversation going well as far as being able to
Look at what
land an interview. I'm sure I'll get like, oh, that sounds great. Let me check my books and I'll get back to you.
How many people?
What?
How many people have I interviewed on the show?
A lot.
How many people do you think I would ever interview on the show?
Not very many.
When we first started, how many?
Not very many.
Like zero?
No, not zero.
You thought I could get who? Like when we first started talking about, oh, let's call him. Let's talk to
I
him.
think we could get some local reps that were running. Like no offense, Todd. We love you, Todd. But a Todd Fromeyer. Someone that's just not well known in the... Oh, yeah, I like Todd. But it's someone that's not well known in the political scene that hasn't been a state senator for a while or whatever, that is at a semi-elevated level in the political sphere.
So you think I should run for District 4?
No.
Kyle's not running?
No.
Why not?
I don't know.
I'll be retired by then.
I miss you.
Do what?
I'd miss you.
I'm District 4 in county.
I know.
I'm not going anywhere.
Then you're going to be holding to your constituents, and you won't be my friend.
Everybody hates Sam, so I can't be friends with Sam anymore because I need it for my political career.
That's right.
I was going to keep you in my pocket as my fall guy. I was going to give you a job on my cabinet, and then when some shit went down, you were going to want me to get fired.
It was something weird I read earlier, or watched some YouTube video on. Saying in the early 1900s, it was some like department store in New York City had people on the payroll that were literally there to be, I guess, like the semi-fall guy. I guess like customers started like bitching, like you were the person that got pretend fired. They paid people to be that guy. Like he said, "What? Oh well, you're fired." Someone to pretend to be fired, and I guess that brought them more public. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, those managers are great. They really take care of their customers. They'll straight up fire some bitch just for nothing, just for back talking me." I just thought it was amazing that someone was actually paid for that position to get pretend fired.
I mean, there's plenty of them out there. It's probably not rare.
I would like to think that is a rare
It depends
profession.
it depends on the industry. Yeah, I think politics is probably there's probably plenty in the political profession.
Very possible.
But I don't know. Like I don't want county commission's a joke. I don't want to do it. I'd rather get appointed to some silly volunteer body than get paid $1,700 a month or whatever the fucking bullshit salary is. Yeah. Because I would want to. Because you're right. I would want to. I would want to answer the phone. I would want to respond to all the emails. I'd want to be interactive. And I just can't. There's no way. I know I can't. And because I'm already bad enough now with being on my phone and texting and checking sales and doing all sorts of shit at all fucking hours all the time. Right. It's like maybe when the kids are out of the house, maybe in the 2030 election cycle, I might start looking into it. Because I'd want to, I 100% respect Gloria Johnson for it. I would want to be the Gloria Johnson, at least as far as approachability.
Yeah. Like, here's my number, call. I
don't disagree with her as a human. I have issues on and off with her politically, but as a human being and as a representative, that would be the kind of representative that I'd want to be. Not policy, right? But as a come on, you're my neighbor. Come knock on my door.
Let me know what's going on. What's bothering you? Yeah.
Right.
I can respect that.
And I can't help, and I know myself well enough that I know I wouldn't stop it when I needed to. Like, I need to say, hey, okay, yes, I'm available to you guys, but here's a window.
Right.
Give me some space. I do have a family. I do have other things going on in my life. I do need a little bit of personal time. I'm trying to take a shit. Give me 5 minutes.
Promise I'll call
and
you
I wouldn't,
back.
And I'd have a hard time with that. I know I would.
Yeah.
And so, and honestly, I don't know. Like, at least county-wise, I don't know how much to make a difference. Maybe I'll run for mayor. Jacobs is going to term out. That's a 26 election.
Can he rerun, or is it a lifetime thing?
It's a 2 max. Yeah, he'll be running for governor.
Think so?
Yeah.
Damn.
And that rumor started before he was running for mayor.
Everybody thought that was what he already had his sights on.
Well, before he ran for re-election as mayor, like, at least as the in the know or speak on, he is the mayor of Knoxville was step one on mayor of Knox County, was step one on a political career for Jesse the Body Ventura. I'm sorry, Glenn Jacobs.
Jesse the Body Ventura. He did become a governor.
Yeah. Great state of Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota.
Who also elected Al Franken as a senator. Is Al Franken a senator? He was federal of some sort.
He was a senator.
Yeah, senator or House of Reps, whatever.
Yeah.
One or the other. They also elected Ilhan Omar and all sorts of random people. No judgment. I don't have any issues. I don't really care. Omar got in trouble. Apparently, she's getting kicked off committee because she's might be anti-Semitic.
I can't remember what. Yeah, she made a comment like a year or two ago. Has since apologized for it.
No, it's I don't understand the relationship of the United States with Israel. Like, I don't know what deal is with. Like, it's the only ally I guess we have in anything close to the Middle East, which I guess is strategically important. We have the Saudis, but they're not really reciprocal.
It's a weird tie that goes back that long.
I just don't I don't understand. Like, there's so much weird history there that I don't understand. Like,
I think it kind of makes us look a bit worse in the world because we've essentially picked a winner in a hotly contested, ever disputed region of the world.
Right.
That is literally the epicenter of 3 major world religions that all claim their God-given right to that land.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's Israel's.
Right.
And they're like, wait, you don't know the history that goes back like 5,000 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's Israel's.
Well, I mean, the realistically is what is the strategic advantage of any of it? Regardless of which team we pick to win the thing. I don't know who the good guys and the bad guys are. I don't really care. Because,
I mean, going back to the 60s, you had access to the Suez Canal. I don't know what exactly was going on, which is Egypt, more of an Egypt thing, which is essentially right there next to it. So, I mean, I think that had a lot to do with it. Essentially, you had shipping that's going through the Mediterranean.
You had to pick a winner so that you were on the team of the people that were controlling the thing that made world commerce.
Very possible. Because in many conflicts, you have other sides that are kind of backing.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be if I had the time and energy, that'd be a fun little history deep dive.
I've tried a couple times. I still can't understand kind of when it, because it goes back thousands of years, and then it kind of reignited in the 60s, and even after World War II, and then into the 60s.
A big chunk of the post World War II was that.
I think that was when Israel was created, basically.
These specifically persecuted people from this crazy ass fucking German dude. They need their own country, so we don't have to worry about them getting concentration camps and stuff and shit in the future. They have their own place to go. Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I do get it in that sense, is that a safe haven for a subgroup of people to be able to hide when some fucking psychopath goes crazy. But I don't understand what our need. I mean, it goes back to my same thing with Ukraine right now. It's like, I don't understand our need to be involved in this thing. We got our tanks over there now.
Not yet.
Well, not physically yet. I know we've promised to send them. I don't know if they've been there yet.
I don't think they've made it there yet.
Yeah,
we're not sending them the good ones.
Sending a name. Like, what was it? As
They were sending them like Bradleys or something, but not Abrams.
I don't know. I think it was it UK that said something like one of the UK ministers of military something, whatever the title is, said that we're getting to the point where it's going to be a decision on whether we're going to give Ukraine a thing or we're going to have enough to use if we ever need them.
I hadn't heard that. There was like 4 countries that all agreed to send like Leopard 1 tanks to Ukraine.
Well, which they're all Germans. It's like Poland has German Leopards, and the agreement when Germany gave them to Poland was they're yours. So Poland had to ask Germany if they could give Ukraine their tanks because they're actually German tanks that the Poles were borrowing, for lack of a better word. So the
borrowing or bought?
I don't know.
I would assume bought.
The agreement and whatever the agreement was.
Sure, sure there was some kind of agreement. It's like
Poland has control
you can
of
buy
these.
those from us, but you can't go shipping them off to.
Right, they're yours. And they're nobody else's. You can't resell them, which is kind of a weird relationship. But that's also NATO kind of inside shit.
Well, no, I think that's any kind of like respectable deal of anything of a weapon that can cause that kind of destruction. I'm sure the U.S. does the same thing with many of our tanks. They're like, hey, we'll send these to you, but you can't give these to your, paramilitary groups that aren't a part of your government. They go around doing whatever.
And I know that there's a handful of Ukrainian pilots that are getting trained on NATO platforms, just like the F-14.
So I don't think I know Ukraine's asking for it. I don't know if anybody's actually agreed to send any kind of warplanes.
Maybe that was the one with the UK guy was talking about. It's like, yeah, we could give them some planes, but then we don't have enough for what we want to have because it takes a little while to spin up production.
Yeah,
and get new ones made. Which again, the people that make them are super excited. Like, yeah, give them all of them. We'll make you a whole new set. Be great money. So, anyway, yeah, we're not allowed to go down the Ukraine rabbit hole anymore. I try not to. I wasn't trying to get down that one. I was just mentioning.
It's cool.
It's a development. It's recent. It's up to date.
Did you watch any of that? Any clips of that one guy told you about?
No, I haven't.
Gotcha.
I went back. I did find it.
It's pretty interesting. I watched a couple other videos.
I might have started a minute of it, but I didn't get very far into it because Crystal and Sagar were on, and I listened to that one.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Kalinske, which is a spin-off show that Crystal and Sagar do. Anyway, he was on Rogan. Fuck, I forgot what I was going to say about that. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the news of the weird, man? I think we're running to the end of this thing.
Didn't really see too much too crazy.
Actually, before we get to news of the weird, what's your? It's Super Bowl Sunday, people.
I don't give a fuck.
Come on, man.
I honestly don't give a fuck.
I don't know.
I honestly probably won't even watch it. Don't give a shit.
I'll have it on passively. I'll be poking my head in and out whether I'm watching it. Watching it will be an overstatement for what I'm doing. But I like the Chiefs to win, but something in the back of my head says Philly's winning that game. I think it'll be high scoring though. I think it's gonna be a big, like 35-28, something crazy like that. It's gonna be big numbers, 50 plus. That's my prediction is 50 plus, probably Philly. So take that. News of the week. News of the week. Sam's fun, silly, ridiculous, straw gambling.
Kind of weird, but hear about all the, I think it was like the Dallas Zoo. They kept getting a bunch of animals that were going missing. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I think I've heard a little bit of that.
Yeah. Or the Texas man that was jailed, at least in the monkey case. I think they suspect him of some of the other ones, but said he would do it again.
Say it one more time.
It was a Texas man. They actually arrested a man for it. He stole like 2 monkeys. Those monkeys that have a cool like little handlebar mustache.
Uh-huh.
But he stole.
No.
What are they called?
So he stole them or he released them?
Stole them from the zoo
and took them home.
Yeah, or took them. He had some kind of building that they found like some handful of other animals that were there. Of a place he took them to.
So he had his own zoo. He had his own zoo that he didn't let other people in.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. I'm saying, like,
Trying to find the name of those monkeys.
like, you know, you got some old school, like, activists that just, like, release them into the wild or whatever. Have you heard about El Jefe?
Mm-mm.
The only leopard in America? The United States of America?
I want to say a little story about that.
The only known leopard. So apparently, it's this big-ass fucking leopard who has been crossing the border fairly regularly into Arizona, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a whole set of, like, you know, do we want to reestablish a leopard population in the Americas and the conservation and all that kind of back and forth or whatever. But so, like, a bunch of, like, trail cams are out and stuff, and there's this one particular leopard that they have, you know, trail cam footage of for years now. And they call him El Jefe. It's the only known, but it's all these areas, and leopards are super reclusive. They're hard to find anyway or whatever, but it's like, these guys are going out and they're putting up trail cams, trying to find them, and trying to find any leopards. And they only keep finding this one over and over again. So there's one leopard that'll wander up into Arizona, eat some shit, hang out for a while, then wander back down into Mexico. Hmm. And so we don't know if he's breeding. We don't know anything about him. And we don't know if there's any more. But it would be very unlikely with the amount of effort they put in to try to find that they're finding one, but not any more than one.
That's possible. It took us a while to find the snow leopard.
Yeah. So
there's many animals that we thought were extinct, and we're like, oh shit.
Speaking of hunting and conservation and whatnot, I've got a new shotgun coming. I'm excited about.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's one thing I regretted not getting when we were divvying up things after my grandfather passed.
Yeah, I
was like, I don't really need a shotgun.
Mine is an inheritance. It's my grandfather's.
Yeah, it was an older one anyway.
Yeah, this is.
And I was like, well, that would be kind of cool thing to have around the house. Be like, oh, what's that noise? Like,
yeah,
it was pump action. So
yeah, that's what this one is too. And it's like it's a long ass barrel. Like it's a duck. It's a duck or quail. It's a bird hunting shotgun. The one that I'm getting.
Whatever you want into it. You put slugs into it.
Yeah, but it's a long
bird shot.
But for when you're bird hunting, it's a longer barrel.
Because you get more accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get less spread.
Right. But that's my point. So I was like walking down the hallway because there's intruders in your house.
Yeah.
You're going to see it for a good second or two before I make it around the corner to point it at you.
You just saw it off. Don't tell anybody about it.
That would be illegal, sir. I would not commit thud crime. That would be inappropriate.
That's right.
But more guns. I'm excited about that. I'm going to have to get a safe.
Did you see there was a local guy that got busted for, I think it was a bunch of like Glock, and they had one of their AR, but it was basically like modified parts to make Glocks and ARs fully auto.
No, I did not hear that story.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
They're illegal.
Oh.
Oh. Let's see. They arrested him because he broke the law. God, that makes sense. Forgot. We had laws in place.
Yep.
That's right. Disregard laws at your own peril.
I mean, obviously, that's what he did.
Yeah. But it was funny because actually, I think in the story, like, he made a jailhouse phone call to the guy. It was still, I think he was still trying to get the shit to, like, the informant.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He's like still trying to get a hold of this guy to like pick up the package that was getting mailed to his house or whatever. So just so he can still get the deal, I guess. Probably to make some bail money or whatever.
So it's like, hey man, you got the stuff? Yeah, you got the money. Yeah. Cops come in, arrest him. Hey man, you gonna pick it up or what? That was his one jail. That's funny. That is.
I don't think it was one. I think it was just you can make more calls while you're in jail.
I understand. Still, the fact that
you initially get arrested, they say you've got that
one call.
You got your one call.
No, just the fact that he made that call at all, like that's funny.
Yeah, I don't even think I was like, these calls are recorded, right?
Stupid people do stupid stuff.
That's right.
All right, man. Well, let's call it a show. No? Yes?
Yeah, sure.
You got something else?
No.
You were stalling like you had some more to talk about.
No.
Sam's going to do the outro for me.
No, thank you. Dun, 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 dun.
You have no idea how much editing that cost me right there. It's going to cost you like 3 minutes. almost agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, website, almostagreement.com. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Check us out there. Give us a like, share, friend, follow, review, whatever it is. Tell your friends about us. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. We got some more upcoming stuff. Clint Harris is going to tear down an old building, which is hilarious in and of itself. Probably should have brought that up on the show. Anyway, yeah, that's what I got. That's what we do. Stick around. We'll do another show next week. If not sooner, I'm going to try to get Briggs in here. I need to try to get a hold of Elaine Davis's team and get her in here, too, because I'd love to talk about how she feels about being a freshman senator or representative or whatever it is. Anyway, almost everybody. Have a great night. Bye.